Episode 77 of the Monday Morning Worship Leader. Rosh Hashanah.
Hey guys, it's Brother John. So good to be with you on this Monday morning for the Monday Morning Worship Leader. In case you don't know who I am an associate pastor of worship at a Southern Baptist church in St. Louis, Missouri. Parkway Baptist. You can always look us up on Facebook. You can look us up on YouTube. We have a lot of links there, and so just check us out. But I am a guy who has studied worship most of his adult life, if not all of his adult life, and it's just something that is always of great interest to me. And so in this podcast, I just share some interesting tidbits with you, the worship leader, on a Monday. So we call it the Monday Morning Worship Cast. And it's also the first day of Tishri, 5786 on the Hebrew calendar. And this is not only the first day of a Hebrew month, but it is the civil new year of the Hebrew calendar. And it's known as Rosh Hashanah. There are really two things that are happening today. One is the autumnal equinox. It is now autumn, and this evening will be Rosh Hashanah. And so because nighttime begins the calendar day in the Hebrew calendar. So Rosh Hashanah begins at sundown. Rosh Hashanah is the time of the shofar. But is it in the Bible? And that's something that I always found interesting. Not having grown up with a Jewish heritage, I often wondered about Rosh Hashanah, and I did some investigating. So Rosh Hashanah is in the Bible? Kind of. So let's look at it. We can see this whispering of Rosh Hashanah. It's Leviticus 23 through 25. It says this, "And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the people of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall observe a day of solemn rest, a memorial proclaimed with the blast of trumpets, a holy convocation. You shall do no ordinary work, and you shall present a food offering to the Lord." And then on Numbers 29, 1 through 6, it says this, "On the first day of the 7th month, you shall have a holy convocation." Again, same thing. "You shall not do any ordinary work. It's a day for you to blow trumpets, and you shall offer a burnt offering for a pleasing aroma to the Lord, 1 bull from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year, without blemish. Also, their grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 each of the 7 lambs, with 1 male goat for a sin offering, to make atonement for you. Besides the burnt offering of the new moon, and the grain offering, and the regular burnt offering, and its grain offering, and their drink offering, according to the rule for them, for a pleasing aroma, a food according to the Lord." And so we have these two very, very pointed passages to at least something that happens on the first day of Tishri, the 7th month. Now, if you've noticed, I said the 7th month, yet it is the civil new year, which is kind of interesting too. And that is one for much more speculation than I care to do here. And I've read some papers on it and why we have this happening. But in the Bible, it is the first day of the 7th month. Alludes to this again. The Psalms allude to it in Psalm 81, 3rd verse. And it says, "Blow the trumpet at the new moon, at the full moon on our feast day." Well, the new moon is always indicative of a new month. That's how they came about in the Hebrew calendar. And really the only festival day that happens on a new moon is again this day, the first day of Tishri. But in the Bible, it's not called Rosh Hashanah, which is Hebrew for New Year, or year new. It is in Scripture the day of trumpet sound, also known as, in Hebrew transliteration, Yom Teruah, or the day of the sounding of the trumpet. It used to be quite different, Yom Teruah. Everyone blew ram's horns that day. You would just hear ram's horns playing all throughout. People would just pick them up and play, and it was a time of jubilation, ending on a holy convocation. But now, in the ceremony, it's one person who does the honors. That person would be called a Baal Tekaya. And in other words, the person sounding the Tekaya. And the Tekaya is a trumpet sound, as is a Teruah. We see those outlined in Numbers 10. The Teruah, which was known as the blow in Numbers 10, and the Tekaya, which is the call. All right, so I am all about the joy of Rosh Hashanah, and I don't mean to belittle that, but what about Yom Teruah? And how does this affect Christian Free Church worship? Well, I just have like 4 reasons that this affects us in worship. The first thing is, we always have to remember Judaism is the mother of our faith. We don't have Christianity without Judaism. We don't have the root of David, the descendant of Jesse, Jesus Christ. That's part of the story, is the plight of the Jews. So it is the mother of our faith. So it's something that we should always keep in the background. But number 2, we also need to understand this as we consider things like the shofar, as we consider Rosh Hashanah. We need to remember that these celebrations, these specifications for the horns, they're not biblical, they're Talmudic. After the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70, everything kind of changed. People, and especially a rabbinical rule, really seemed to take over what we understood from biblical rule. And that's also, not coincidentally, very, very soon after Christ's death and resurrection. And so we just see Judaism going a totally different direction. And that's where we start to get things like Rosh Hashanah from. And so we have to remember, number 2, that this celebration is Talmudic and it is not biblical. Number 3, we need to remember, and this shows us, calendar is important. Calendar is important to our faith as well. Don't forget that. There has been a movement for the past several years that we really shouldn't adhere to a Christian calendar. And I talk about this in a previous episode.
That's episode 15.
But calendar is very important. It's important to believers to have this cyclical account. And in fact, in Judaism, for whatever, however you might agree with this statement or not, I think there is some validity where one rabbi has said that the calendar is our theology. And what the idea is that the calendar marks those theological moments that we need to remember, that we're called to remember. But so if calendar is important, then Yom Teruah is also important. And it's important to see that the Old Testament is a source reference for the New Testament. And we should look at everything in the Old Testament as, how does this foreshadow Christ? Well, in Matthew 24:30 through 31, it says, "Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, and he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to another." You see, Yom Teruah was simply a day of hearing the trumpet. And perhaps it was about preparing our hearing for the sound of the trumpet, for that last call when Christ will come for his church. But unfortunately, it has become a day to celebrate the new year. And I'm all for celebrations. And I have a lot of Jewish friends. And to you, I do bid you a wonderful Rosh Hashanah. But Yom Teruah had a very specific duty. And that was to foreshadow the coming of Jesus Christ. And so sometimes in our worship, we can see that things get lumped into something else. And just like Rosh Hashanah being lumped into just this celebration of the new year, sometimes our worship can get lumped into something more then it is just looking ahead for the call of the trumpet to bring his children home. So let's keep our ears tuned for the Teruah of the trumpet on that last day. Remember, we are not rock stars. We are servants. God bless you. So with Yom Teruah, or Rosh Hashanah, comes Yom Kippur. Let's talk about it.
Next time on the podcast.